Welcome to the Spike Feed, your leading Magic the Gathering podcast. What is up? My name is Curtis, and I'm just your typical Spike. On the line with me, as per the usual, producer extraordinaire, not using a V-neck today, dude.
I
What's
know
going on
what's up
there?
with that. I told you, I have one shirt that's on a V-neck or two, I guess, but this is it.
Well, I am depressed. I don't know how I'm supposed to get motivated, but we're going to power through. Uh,
Yeah.
dude, how you been?
Good. Yeah. This week has been kind of crazy. So no magic for me, which is kind of a bummer, but and it's also it's also a good time of year to not be playing magic because you can just put your brewer cap on with like all the crazy cards, right?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So, I played a little bit, so that's what we'll talk about. But we really need to catch up on spoilers. The way the schedule is going to work for us is we're gonna wrap up talking about spoiled Kaladesh cards. Next week we'll go through metagame breakdown where Cameron and I really talk about the decks we think we're gonna see from the outset. Uh, I'm guessing it's gonna be a lot harder this time than it was last,
Yeah.
just based upon the new mechanics. But just know that that's something that's in our future. I know there's a lot of people brewing already, but we want to go through the pre-release and all that stuff first. Anyway, so this week I just want to mention really quickly, Cameron. Outside of trying to study the spoiler and kind of get my head around the set, I got to play some modern in person, like with real live human beings.
This is really hard to believe. I mean, when was the last time you actually did this and a tournament fired off?
For modern, it's been months. Whenever
Yeah.
I play paper, it tends to be standard, and just because of where I'm at, usually my standard tournaments are between 5 and 12 people. I wouldn't say that this has been my favorite standard, but I've run pretty well. I've had a lot of
Mhm.
success with banned humans, whereas modern's it's a little bit tougher for me. Yeah, I tend to have either hot or cold tournaments. I keep meaning to just finalize Nihiri Jeskai. I have one Nihiri. I just need to pick up three more, and I still haven't. But it's
Sure.
tough whenever you don't play modern enough to uh, go grab the stuff that you need and drop whatever that would be, $60, if
Totally.
you're only going to play in a couple months. So again, that's what I want to be playing in paper Nihiri Jeskai, but I had a really bad experience with Storm. What was that last month? So I decided to just reassemble Grixis Control and play it. And honestly, I had a pretty good tournament. I feel like I played well. I lost ad nauseum, which I think is almost what's the word I'm looking for? Terrible. It's a
Yeah,
terrible
yeah.
matchup.
Now, I'm just curious, are you playing Kalatis in this or
Oh yeah,
Kalidas,
oh yeah,
whatever?
oh yeah.
Yeah,
There's just certain strategies that he shuts down. I have him as a 3 of. Most people play him as a 2 of and then a 2 of Tassiger. Um,
nice.
and anyway, but I'm playing a couple Jaces, 4 Snapcasters, and then it's just a potpourri of potpourri. There we go. Hold on, let me get some more coffee in me.
Yeah, sit that down there.
A potpourri of removal spells, right? And so whenever I'm playing
Mhm.
against a combo deck and I only have 4 mana leaks and I'm not playing any discard main, I just kind of get wrecked, right?
Mhm.
And so lost that match. I drew against Nihiri Jeskai, but I feel like that
Mm.
matchup's pretty strong. The match took a long time,
Mhm.
and then uh, but I beat I beat Jund, and I'm trying to think of the third match I won, but doesn't matter. The point is, I went 3-1-1, and then I lost in the top four to Tribal Zombies, which I know people are like Tribal Zombies. Look, dude, if you are packing lightning bolts and terminates, the modern zombies deck is really difficult to beat because
Mhm.
everything recurs. And Path to Exile. If you place Path to Exiles, can really rip that deck apart. But my opponent was playing Gray Merchants, and game three, he just like Gray Merchant me into like
Ugh.
next week. There's like literally nothing I could do.
It's like Theros standard all over again,
Right,
right?
right. Uh, but Grixis is it's a fine F and M deck for modern. I think it's not super great competitively. A lot of people though have told me that it's gotten a lot better with collective brutality, which is that or is that the
Hmm.
right one? It's the one that it's the escalate card where you can discard cards to get more escalate pieces, and you can effectively use that to make them discard a lot. I feel
Mhm.
like new Liliana is much better than old Liliana because just playing the Infect matchup, I had an active Liliana, and I was able to, make him discard, make him sack a creature, and do what Liliana's supposed to do. But I thought,
Hmm.
man, if I had new Liliana, this would be not even close because I could just ping his stuff, and Liliana would be plussing, and I would never have to discard my own cards.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Hmm.
that's kind of I don't want to bite the bullet and buy Liliana the Last Hope right now, but I really need to. Um, like
Hmm.
very badly, but I mean she's like a whatever $40-$50 card. So um anyway, that's kind of where I'm at with Modern. I've been playing draft leagues, but I haven't really touched it in about 4 or 5 days because the switchover is getting ready to happen. But draft leagues are still just the best.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And really been enjoying those. Um, yeah, everybody's excited for Kaladesh and new Kaladesh standard. So we're gonna cut this segment way short, okay, Cameron? Because you have nothing to add in terms of what you've been playing
Yeah,
this week,
yeah.
right?
I'm an awful Magic player this week.
Yeah, you and your responsibilities, man.
Yeah.
But we're going to come back. We're going to talk about a ton of spoilers, talk about the inventions, all that good stuff. We'll be right back. All right, guys, welcome back. Just rounding out the spoilers for Kaladesh. We have some big ones, some really big ones. I want to start with just cards in the set, and then we'll talk about the inventions, masterworks, whatever you want me to call them. Cameron, would you like to start with the Planeswalker?
Whoa. You're throwing me off. Sure. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, did you have that in order? Oh, dude, I just threw the order out the window, man.
That's totally good. I just have to pull them up here, so like just have a little pause. But yeah, I can talk about Dovin. So we have Dovin Bond, right? Is that how you pronounce it? And he cost two colorless, a white and a blue. He's a Planeswalker Dovin with a starting loyalty of 3, +1. Until your next turn, up to one target creature gets -3/-0, and its activated abilities can't be activated. -1, you gain 2 life and draw a card. And then -7, you get an emblem with your opponents can't untap more than 2 permanents during their untapped steps. Um, this is the type of card that I feel like Control would definitely want. Uh, but I'm looking at him and I'm just wondering, is he actually good enough? Um, he seems great or whatever, but I just don't know if he's gonna be like one of those bulk planeswalkers who you looks like there's some potential, but maybe nothing will happen. So I'm really kind of just lukewarm on this card.
It is noticeably less powerful than Chandra and Nissa, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like noticeably. Now, that's not to say this won't see play. It really depends. Like all these planeswalkers, the context, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's interesting. The activated abilities. I was trying to like just sit and think about the activated abilities on creatures that you would like to shut down. It's not a
Mm-hmm.
ton. There's a lot of triggered abilities, but that doesn't mean anything, right? Like you're not shutting down Tireless Tracker's ability here, Um, and so here's what I think, because some people saw this and they instantly went, "All right, blue-white control. There's a
Mm-hmm.
Wrath. There's a blue-white Planeswalker." And the problem is that first of all, you're constructing a blue white deck and you're not playing Spell Queller in this theoretical shell, which I think blue white is without a doubt, or I'm sorry, Spell Queller is without a doubt the most colorful, powerful card in blue white right now. Would you agree with
Mm-hmm.
that?
Oh yeah, yeah.
And so if you're playing tap out control with Wraths and stuff, obviously you're not going to play Spell Queller, right?
Yeah.
And so this guy just might be in the blue white spirits deck as a 2 of, just to
Hmm.
gain some kind of long game. You get some benefit there.
I will say that blue white spirits really lacks card draw, and I mean, as much as I wish that this were almost reversed, where the -1 was the your activated abilities can't work on a creature, but yeah, I mean, it definitely needs that for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, look, you're just not going to get to the ultimate. It's just such an awkward, weird.
It is.
I mean, I want to like this card, guys. This is the kind of card that I like to play. But just sit this next to not just Chandra, just Nissa, and look at the abilities side by
Hmm.
side. It's like really telling. If I play Dovin Bond and then I pass to you and you're like Nissa, give my forest haste, kill your. It's just.
Yeah.
And by the way, Nissa draws more cards than this.
It,
Like,
which it makes no sense, but yeah.
yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I'm pretty down on this. So, uh, yeah, not good enough. Not good enough. Okay, so I'm going to switch this over because we're just all over the place, Cameron. I'm going to go
Okay.
to Aether Hub.
Okay.
Aether Hub is an uncommon land, which is interesting. And when it enters the battlefield, you get an energy counter. You can add a colorless to your mana pool, or you can pay an energy to add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of hypotheticals with the energy deck. There's a couple really strong energy low to the ground creatures that are in the green red
Mm-hmm.
archetype. Uh, and then there's a bunch of energy generating or like long game energy cards. And we covered one last week whose name I don't remember, but it's the one that every time you cast an instant or sorcery, you gain a certain amount of energy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so this is something that I really like. I think it fits in that archetype. I just don't know if it's aggro or control. What do you think, Cameron?
Yeah, I totally agree. There's so much potential here, and like this is where like the brewer cap, and I'm just going nuts trying to figure out where will this fit. Because I see all these like blue creatures that enter the battlefield and you can get 3 energy, and it's like okay, that's really cool. So now I can use Aether Hub to cat. There's like some potential there. Um, it could just be not good enough either. I mean, this could be just like the tribal human, whatever land that it's like sure it works, but it's not that good. So, um, I don't know. There's more questions than I have answers as far as what I'm gonna actually do with the energy. I'm excited. I think there's potential there. There's even potential for maybe like modern or legacy where like some of these cards could really generate some cool new interactions. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how people are going to figure this out. I'm just not smart enough to be that person, right?
Well, and also this could be a card that does nothing this time, and then whenever they add energy again, it might end up being great. You just don't know how that's all going to kind of suss out. But this
Mhm.
is for all. There's a card called Tendo Ice Bridge that was in Kamigawa block that you got to put one counter on it, and that one counter could create any color mana. It's pretty much the same thing, right?
Mhm.
Only if you're able to generate multiple uh, energy counters, then this thing becomes a city of brass with no downside.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's pretty sweet. Anyway, uh, trying to give you a lot of meaty cards today, Cameron. I don't know. I'm in a
Right.
giving mood, so let's have you go over Fumigate.
Yeah, so this is the new Wrath. It
Mm-hmm.
cost my most hated number, 3 colorless, white, white. Destroy all creatures. You gain 1 life for each creature destroyed this way. I mean, once again, like I am a broken record on this. I want a 4 mana Wrath. Like I think it's time that we get that. Like all these creatures are doing all this crazy stuff, and we just need to slap them on turn 4. But I mean, as far as this, if this is the way that Wraths are going, this one seems totally good. I like this in late game where if you're playing, maybe it's like a black white control deck where like you're pinging yourself or doing something where maybe you're at 3, wipe the board, and then all of a sudden you've got game again. You might have 3 more turns instead of 1 more turn to gain control of the board. So this card has potential. If you're playing control, you're going to be playing this card. I'm just still bitter about 5 mana.
You should be. Now the upside here is strong, right? Like
Yeah, yeah.
against something like blue white, or I'm sorry, red white humans, which I think will still very much be a deck. In fact, I don't know how much of that deck is rotating at all. Kytheon, I think, is the only thing. But being able to gain 3-4 life after a wrath matters.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is, and again, I think this is what's going to haunt that 5 mana wrath that you're talking about, is you're spending your turn 5 wrathing, and there's going to be a lot of decks that their turn 4 or turn 5 on a creature deck is playing a planeswalker.
Mm-hmm.
And so you haven't really addressed that issue, right? Whether it's a
Mm-hmm.
Nissa or a Chandra or even, an Omnixilus or whatever. So this is fine. This is better than Planar Outburst or whatever the other one is, the other 5 mana white wrath.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but I just really have been projecting this format to be a lot more aggressive than what we're currently used to, because there's no languish, right? So black loses a wrath, period.
Yeah.
And then white has this 5 mana wrath. And then you're going to be playing with, I mean, maybe not if it's straight blue white, but if you're playing like a 3-color deck, 3-color control, some number of your cards are going to come into play tapped. What happens
Yeah.
if your fourth land comes into play tapped, or fifth land? Then you're
Mm-hmm.
off this. Because, I mean, when we're talking about hitting the wrath on turn 5, your mana has to work out in such a way, right? It's a
Yeah.
lot easier to hit all 4 of your first 4 land drops than 5. Somebody that's a statistician can come up with those numbers, but I can tell you, land 5 on turn 5 is a lot harder than. See, I'm so aggressive about this. My headset just
Yeah.
fell
Yeah. Yeah.
off.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah. So I like it. Don't overrate it. I'm not into tap out control. What I am into. Oh God, Cameron, I'm excited about this. I'm excited. So, look, in in terms of counter spells, I've been complaining and complaining and complaining. However, this one is within the realm of playability, which is exciting. Um, the intensely poorly named Revolutionary Rebuff, right?
uh,
It's 1 in a blue, counter target non-artifact spell unless its controller pays 2. So it's basically very, very close to Rune Snag. Now, non-artifact does matter. You won't be able to counter a vehicle. You won't be able to counter one of these gear hulks. Those are the most notable things that are artifacts right now. However, Cameron, this is what fairy or not fairies. Wow, how many times have we done
right.
that?
Yeah. Yeah. I
This
don't
is
know.
this is the card that Spirits has been missing, right?
It is. Yeah.
So
I see this card and it's like a snap four of in there. I mean, turn two, this turn three, spell queller. I mean, this is that 2 mana card that I feel like will put hopefully at least on the counter game, yeah, spirits just over the edge where I think it's got game now.
yeah, and so then you get into this great situation where on turn 2 you can cast Rattle Chains or this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now you can protect your Spell Queller on turn 4,
Mm-hmm.
right? And this is not something that you could do before. Like Spell Shrivel was 3 mana, and so it was just a much harder counterspell to get to
Yeah.
work. Spell Shrivel isn't going anywhere, by the way. So you might play 4 of these and then 2 Spell Shrivel or
Yeah.
something that kind of creates a balance of your counterspells. But this makes me feel like a tempo fairy deck, which might be 3 colors.
Spirit stack.
How, yeah. I want
But
it
hey,
to
it
be.
could work in fairies too. I
It
mean,
could
it
work
really
in
could.
fairies. It would be great in fairies. If you just want to play a worse counterspell than Mana League. Anyway, yeah, I'm down, right? And picking up my spell quellers now
Yep.
on MTGO. I mean, I want to try fairies, spirits first. Fairy spirits. That's what we should just call it. Fairy spirits.
It's fairy spirits from here on out. Yeah.
All right. So anyway, way into this card. Now, Cameron, I'm going to throw at you the rare this counterspell is rare, and I was very disappointed. So
Yeah.
I'm going to give you the worst one of the two. What is this?
We have Insidious Will. It's an instant, cost 2, and then blue. Choose 1. Counter target spell. You may choose new target for target spell, or copy target instant or sorcery spell. You may choose new targets for the copy. Um, I mean, yeah, like all three of those abilities are great. Like there's no denying that. Um, but this is not um, what's the modern playable for counterspell that everybody plays? I can't
Cryptic
remember.
command?
Yeah, it's not cryptic,
It's
right?
not
I
even
mean,
Ojitai's command.
yeah, it's nothing close to that. The fact that you can only choose one, there's not a card draw. I mean, like I unfairly comparing it, but I think in today's standard environment, or what will be today's standard, or standard here out, a 4 mana counter that does one thing just way too slow. You're tapping out way too many resources for what could be a revolutionary rebuff instead, where it's like I still have 2 mana up and I can cast a spirit at instant speed on their turn, right? So yeah, I'm down on this card as well. I'm just not a big fan of it.
what a nerfed card. Like I would be not surprised to find out that this card had a different iteration that they nerfed significantly. Why is this choose one?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's compare this really quickly to the command cycle. Just sit for a second and look at Dramoka's command, then look at this,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, or, okay, yes, I know that they're gold cards, but we're talking about 2 mana for 2 abilities, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, you could have changed one of these other abilities, but I mean, when I first looked at this, I thought it was a choose two because why would it be 4 mana if it's not a choose two,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I thought, oh, that's super strong. But you know how often this is just a 4 mana counter spell, like, and nothing else? And a
Yeah.
lot of times when you're doing the other thing, it is still a counter spell, right?
Yeah.
So it is way, way, way below what we're used to. And just I can't believe this is a rare.
Mm-hmm.
Uh this speaks to, and blue I think has gotten a significant lift in Kaladesh. Um and green feels a little bit nerfed compared to how green was in Innistrad block, which
Mm-hmm.
was crazy overpowered. But this is still like, come on, guys, throw me a bone here, right? The red is casting a Chandra for this casting cost, and you're
Mm-hmm.
giving me like just a counter spell. Okay, cool. Um, anyway, not a fan, not a fan. Let's see. Other card I want to talk about, and this one is my pick for most underrated card. Okay,
Hmm.
Cameron.
Okay.
So this is Deadlock Trap. It's 3 colorless and it enters the battlefield tapped. It's an artifact. Okay. When it enters the battlefield, you get 2 energy. Right. You can pay an
Mm-hmm.
energy to tap target creature or planeswalker. Its activated abilities can't be activated this turn. Okay.
Pithing needle. It's great.
It's a weird combination. Do you even? You might not even know what Icy Manipulator is. Have you ever heard of that card before?
Is that the one that's banned?
No, it's not banned in any
Okay.
format.
Okay.
So it was a very powerful card in the early days of Magic. Like, things have changed a lot, but it was 4 mana for an artifact, and you could pay one tap, and you could tap land, creature, artifact,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. And in
Mm-hmm.
those days, if you tapped an artifact, it couldn't be used, even if it was not a tap activated ability. But the point
Mm-hmm.
is Deadlock Trap is that Icy Manipulator used to see a ton of play in control strategies. And Deadlock Trap has a lot of interesting things. Now, I think that entering the battlefield tapped kind of reduces its playability significantly.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that you get 2 energy, we don't really know what an energy counter is worth in terms of mana. My guess is it's half a card. So, you get some value back out of this. So, you play it, the energy goes into your energy pool right off the bat.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're able to untap with this and shut down planeswalkers, shut down specific creatures, that's pretty strong. Now, in limited, this is going to be unbelievable. But I think this is the kind of thing that we might overlook that you might see in a tap out control deck down the line. Like,
Mm-hmm.
in the same way that Blue Black had to use Perilous Vault to kill planeswalkers,
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
might be the kind of thing that you're able to upkeep, Deadlock Trap your Chandra, right?
Yeah.
So I like this card a little bit. Not a ton, but it's definitely something that might see play. Okay. So, Cameron, let's talk about your love of bling.
Right.
So I want to take you back in time. Do you remember when the Japanese uh, dual deck was spoiled that had Geist of St. Traft, and we were like, oh, well, Innistrad's going to have creatures that are like expeditions, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so we went on this whole thing. There's a whole segment. You can still go find it where we're
Yes.
like, yep, and they're going to do creatures, and they're probably going to do this every set. And then, we got a million messages that were like,
No, you're
hey,
wrong.
dudes, it's a dual deck. And we're like, oh, okay, whoops. But now it looks like the expedition thing is going to be a regular occurrence in sets. Just to put some numbers to it, so I believe it's like 50-ish per block. Okay, and they're going to be called masterpieces. Each set is going to have a specific one that's ties in with the theme of that block. So these are called Kaladesh inventions, but they're part of the masterpiece series.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Cameron, you got to get the masterpiece audio here from PBS, right? Uh, anyway, so these are all artifacts this time around, and so there's 30, I believe, in Kaladesh, and the rarity at which they will appear is one for every 144 packs. So basically, they're special foiled. Some cards, like the Mana Vault we see here, are being foiled in the first time, and they're hyper raritanium. They are just, you're never going
Hmm.
to see them very often. So Cameron, I want to start with
Well,
you.
yeah, I just have one quick question for you. Do you remember what the rarity was for the expedition lands? Like, what was it? One in?
I don't know. I
Yeah.
believe it was very similar. Now,
Okay. Okay.
I've opened expeditions on Magic Online, but never in paper. I mean, look,
Hmm.
I play Magic Online a lot more than I play in paper. Um, but what are your thoughts, Cameron? Because last time expeditions, we were notably more positive than the community on
Hmm.
them. What's your outlook here?
Very similar. This is getting more cards out into the wild. It's creating a premium of those cards that are already kind of expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, and I don't know. Like, I got respect for people who are playing Expedition Lands. Like, I love, like, what is that? Oh, it's a really sweet wasteland. Um, this is great, I think, in the sense of just like there are cards like Chrome Mox, Crucible of Worlds, Aether Vial that have seen reprints or, are fairly new, but are hovering at 40, 50, $60. And I think putting these out will hopefully will keep these at a premium while also lowering the price or making like Crucible a more readily available card so it's not $70. Um, that's my hope. We'll see if it happens or not, but overall, I'm like putting more cards out like this. I think is a positive thing for the game. It's good for collectability. It's good for just playing because we get more cards for people to play in tournaments, which is what Magic should have. So totally good.
Cameron, you're talking crazy. Now,
Yeah.
uh, I mean, a few things with this. So, number one, I do think more so than the expeditions, there is because it is legal to open these in sealed and play with them. So there
Hmm.
is these cards. Certain ones are very strong and limited. Soul Ring, Mana Vault, they're no joke.
Yeah. Right.
So you might have a weird kind of situation, though statistically very rare, where someone opens a seal pool and does well in a tournament because they have a Soul Ring in their set. So hey, that happens. Whatever. I don't really care that much.
Hmm.
But that is a legitimate, I think, thing to be concerned about with some of these cards. Um, secondly, I think the ecosystem is going to kind of work like this, where somebody's going to open one, and chances are they're not the person that is interested in playing with this. A lot of these are very commander centric, and that is
Hmm.
totally okay. And cube centric as well. I feel like that's a pretty overlapping audience when it comes to these. You will see people go get 4 Aether Vials, but those are people that are very invested and very interested. Um, I do think maybe 1 in 144. It's a little maybe too rare. That's
Hmm.
maybe they could be a little bit more aggressive with that. And I you could make the argument that maybe 50 a block is going to be a lot down the line. I don't know, right? But
Yeah.
I'm much more positive on this stuff than a lot of other people. Because first of all, this whole, oh, they're going to tank the value. I invested X amount of dollars in mana crypts and foil mana crypts from Eternal Masters, and then they go and do this. First of all, and let me just give you a hard truth, you don't own the rights to reprint these cards. WotC does. They are
Hmm.
their cards, they are their intellectual property, and they're going to continue to make money off of them because they're a business. Stop acting like you're entitled to something. There's no promise that says outside of the reserve list, if they own the thing, they're going to print it,
Hmm.
right? It's such a weird mentality that exists in Magic. Can you imagine if Marvel was like, "Look, guys, Spider-Man, last month's copy, not going to do it. We're just not going to reprint it, and you
Hmm.
should, intend on gaining a lot of money out of owning that copy." No, they're going to put it in
Yeah.
a trade to value it. They're going to put it online to get some value out of it because they put in the investment and the effort to make it. So stop it, okay? It's not
Now who's
yours, it's
talking crazy?
theirs. Right. Well, I mean, just imagine a board game company doing that.
Oh, I
Like,
know. Yeah. Yeah.
nobody ever says, "Man, they're printing a lot of Monopoly, man. What's going on with that?" And so I think it's also really good for the collector's market, right? because it kind of energizes collectors to get the expeditions and do all those things. So I'm just really positive on this, and I like this story. I like the idea of a kid opening an expedition. And it's going to happen a
Hmm.
lot. And you know what? You can't put a dollar amount on that kid's passion going forward, because what's going to
Hmm.
happen is they might open that, and it might be a terrible one. It might be a Gear Hulk, right? Or
Yeah,
a
right.
hangerback walker.
Uh-huh.
And I mean, boom, you've just created a customer for a long period of time. So don't. I mean, this whole like, oh, they're tanking the value. This is Yu-Gi-Oh now. Just stop it. Just
Hmm.
stop it. They need to meet the demand, and they're going to print as much as they can. That's what they do. So I'm just very, very positive about this. Um, what do you want the next cycle to be, Cameron? We
Uh,
know it's Egypt or Egyptian themed.
oof, man. What could that be? I
I
don't know.
mean,
Maybe it'd just be. I would love to see camels. Let's be
e-
honest.
expedition camels. That's where I was
Yeah,
headed to.
yeah.
So, I mean, because I believe there's only 3 camels in Magic right now, they would have to print 47 new camels for the next set. So the challenge is in front of them. They can do it, right? You can fit
Oh yeah.
47 camels across 2 sets.
Yeah.
That's nothing. That's nothing. Right? Maybe camel themed cards, like maybe there's a camel saddle.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe it's a blend of camel and hawks. Just right. Is that
Don't
too much
tease
to
me.
ask for? I don't
No, the
know.
only time I mean, I want them to do, of course, I want them to print Hawks, but this is all existing in Curtis Fantasy Camp, where first of all, right out of the gate, I don't even care. We're going back to Homelands. We're doing it right. Okay,
Yeah.
Homelands.
I hope they go back to only like 7 cards in a pack too.
Yeah,
'Cause that would be great.
go back to Homelands with the lore. You keep the lore. You give me a green red Aaron the Relentless Planeswalker. Watsy, if you're out there, just feel free to write this down. Okay, artifacts in the old frame as God intended. Or you can use this new frame. I like the invention frames much better than the new chrome garbaggio that we have now. Um, so back to Homelands, and then we do Expedition Hawks, right? And then you print me a Hawk Lord. I mean, that would be batting for the cycle right there. I would be totally down, right?
Oh,
I,
so much goodness. Yeah.
what really frustrates me is when people are like, Fallen Empires and Homelands both stunk. They did. But I just want to get on the record here. Homelands is a better set.
Hmm.
Fallen Empires has Hymn to Turok, it has High Tide, and it has both orders. The entire rest of the set is terrible, like
Mm-hmm.
unplayable. And at the time, Homelands had like Autumn Willow. It has Merchant Scroll. It has Truce. It has some more playable cards
Sure.
that are kind of middle of the road, but they're both terrible. Anyway, Cameron, I just want to touch really quickly on this pro kind of conversation that happened on Twitter.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I know you don't care about the program at all. You can feel free to sip on your coffee real quickly.
I will.
But in case you don't know, the pros engaged in a how not to promote yourself uh, verbal battle online. And I don't really want to get into it, but a lot of it had to do with who deserves what, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there was a qualification for the world championship that was called GP Master. And there were people that had more pro points that didn't get on because of the GP, whatever. The point is this. I'm just going to give pros a little bit of advice. First of all, maybe don't air this out on Twitter, right? If you want WotC to promote you and to make the game more financially viable, do a better job with PR, because holy cow, that was terrible. Secondly, the whole idea that um, people are more deserving or less deserving to get into a tournament. Once you set the structure for the tournament, those are the people that get in, right?
Mm-hmm.
Somebody put out a quote from The Wire. I think it was Nick Miller of Star City. It's a famous quote. Deserves got nothing to do with it, right? And we see
Mm-hmm.
this in sports all the time. I'm going to use a baseball analogy, Cameron, and I apologize. But last year, the Pittsburgh Pirates had a much better record than a lot of other teams, but they still had to go through a one-game playoff, even though they might have, quote, deserved it. Deserve doesn't matter. Once
Mm-hmm.
you set the qualifications and the structure, that's it. That's it, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
I wish competitive Magic players would get out of this deserve mentality.
Yeah, there's too
right?
much entitlement, it sounds like. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
once you start using that, it does sound like an entitlement issue, and you really need to just peel back. And again, maybe that should be something that you write to WotC in a private email, not air out over Twitter, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, just something our pro community needs to work on in terms of promoting themselves, in my opinion. Anyway, so Cameron, we've got a lot of metagame stuff to go through next week. I want to get out of this segment. We're going to talk a little bit about what we've been watching and what we've been playing before we close out the show. We'll be right back. All right, Cameron. So we're going to talk about what we've been doing this week. I want to start with you. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
what have you been watching? What have you been playing? What's been on your plate outside of Magic?
Curtis, have you ever heard of this thing called a Wii U?
I have. One is sitting dormant under my daughter's TV right
Y-
now.
Yeah.
I heard they
Yeah.
produced games for that at one point.
I literally had to dust this thing off. Like there was, I don't know how much, like a full millimeter thick layer of dust on my Wii U, to play both Bayonetta, which I played last week, and then this week I just checked out and just started diving a little bit into Xenoblade Chronicles.
Hmm.
Um, Man, dude, this game, if you want like a deep, just like JRPG, like I don't know where 80 hours of my life have gone. This is the game for you. I'm kind of worried that I might really, really, really get into this, and it might be dangerous. Xenoblade Chronicles, it's kind of like a sci-fi JRPG.
Hmm.
Um, you have like a mech, you know, it's like kind of a shooter, and you just wander around and collect loot and bounties and all this stuff. Uh, the game is very deep. I feel like I'm just scratching the surface as far as even trying to figure out how to play the game, as far as like what best modes to use for combat and how to use your teammates and whatnot. Um, but for I mean, I got this for $20, and like talk about just a deep dive. And I feel like this is the type of game where it's going to be a collectible. I mean, most Nintendo stuff seems to sell a little bit higher than what your PlayStation or
Hmm.
Xbox stuff does. So, I don't feel like I'm out too much if I don't pick this up again. But I'm really curious to know if like other people have like found this to be a very like scratching that itch as far as like a great JRPG. Part of me wishes that this was on the Vita because it just like then I would be playing it every single night of my
It would
life.
be Persona again, right?
Yeah.
Which, by the way, footage has started to surface of Persona 5
Mm-hmm.
and all of its J-pop goodness. Uh, anyway, no, I wanted to. Which, by the way, you can't play Persona 4 on a PS4. Like, there's no way to do that yet. Did you know that?
Really? I guess I didn't know that.
I was
No.
kind of
Huh.
stunned because I was like looking at trying to pick it up whenever I saw the footage for Persona 5. So I've only ever played Persona 1, which is weird. Whenever it got
Okay.
re-released on PSP. But anyway, now, dude, the key with JRPGs is because they're all repetitive, but if it repeats itself and just slightly alters over time, right,
Mm-hmm.
to where it stays interesting, but also, like, I know I'm talking about the combat here, but also you feel so overpowered by the end that you get a real, kind of sense of mastery over the game,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And Final Fantasy X, despite its or not 10, what was that, 14, 13, whatever one it was on, yeah, it's 13 on
Yeah.
PS3.
Yeah.
That was a real problem. Like the combat was unbelievable, but it was super repetitive, and the
Mm-hmm.
story was even bad for a JRPG, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I want to talk to you about something that is way, way out of our normal zones. So it's this TV show called Outlander. Now I want to kind of frame this. So my wife has read the book series and is way
Mm-hmm.
into it, right? It is a very popular series of novels, and they are romance novels, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the TV show we just started. I'm only a couple 3 episodes in, and the reason that I was like, okay, I'm interested, I'm down to watch it, is the writer and showrunner is Ronald Moore, who we know from Battlestar Galactica.
Mm-hmm.
It is his follow-up show. So basically, Battlestar Galactica is an incredible show. Especially, I mean, I think most people would point to season 2 as one of the best written TV seasons ever. And he kind of fell off the map after he completed Battlestar Galactica. Like years and years and years. I guess he developed the Star Wars show and wrote it, and then it didn't happen.
That's
And it
crazy.
was about
Yeah.
Emperor Palpatine. Um, And so anyway, everybody that's read the scripts has said wonderful things, but then he started to adapt this series of novels. And look, full disclosure, not in my wheelhouse at all, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and a lot of the things that it tries to do is very much it's similar to Battlestar, where Battlestar was trying to take this really traditional sci-fi structure and move it into something a little bit bigger. That's what he's trying to do with Outlander. It's like this is a genre piece. This is a romantic. I mean, if you were to read the IMDb description, it is every romance novel you've ever heard. Woman
Mm-hmm.
travels back in time to the Scottish Highlands, meets a guy, who is obviously, what's the word I'm looking for? Perfect for her. And then
Yeah.
there's this kind
Yeah.
of weird, but she left her husband behind, who actually isn't that good of a guy. Whatever. The point
You
is
love
it's
your stories. That's what you like. That's what you're saying.
my stories. No, it is that genre fiction, but there's a few things that kind of make it go outside that bounds. First of all, it's in Scotland, and they openly speak Gaelic in the show, which is not a thing that
Mm-hmm.
you hear ever if you don't live in that area. And so there's that kind of setting which I'm just a sucker for. My
Mm-hmm.
wife and I spent before we got married, we spent a week in Scotland, and it was just like it's so in that level, it's really close to us.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the production values are great. The show's well written, and actually, for this kind of show, pretty well performed. That being said, there's a lot of nothing happening right now. So it's not, I can't recommend it in the way I can recommend Battlestar, but it does have some of those weird Battlestar touches. And I miss that, I miss
Mm-hmm.
a genre show that's trying to be something more. However, if you're like a real sci-fi nerd like me, it's very frustrating because there's this time travel stuff that happens, and you're like, well, how does that affect the timeline and all this? And they don't address any of that. Nothing, right? And so, and people, I mean, this woman just traveled in time like 300 years and
Yeah.
doesn't seem nearly as shocked as maybe she should be, right?
I'm
So,
gonna have to live this one through you, man. I don't think I could do this show. I just don't know. But
I mean, look,
good for you. Good for you.
yeah, I, what's the best way to put this? I don't think it would be you and your wife anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't think it's your vibe. But I am interested and I am intrigued. But as you know, I'm a sucker for that setting. Like if they were just in a Scottish castle with that kind of background music and they were reading grocery lists, I'd be like, okay, this is an interesting, compelling show. So I also feel like I owe it to Ronald Moore because
Oh yeah.
I'll
Yeah.
watch just basically anything he produces. Last thing I want to say is I did try PlayStation Virtual Reality, their helmet, at a demo this last week,
Yeah.
and worked better than I thought it would. So if you are near a shop that's going to do that, I mean, obviously you want to try VR before you drop like however many dollars on it,
Mm-hmm.
but it's definitely worth checking out. So anyway, Cameron, if someone would like to get a hold of you and talk to you about Xenoblade Chronicles, Spirits, or Faeries, where could they go?
They can do that. Twitter at Cameron_McCoy.
And I am at Curtis Now. Our official show feed is at SpikeFeedMTG. We will check you guys next week.